Hey guys, Mrs. Hooven and I are here to talk to you about the next step in our Choose Your Own Adventure story that we're going through with Collection 3. And this is sort of it's the time to start reading the texts from the book. And our collection is called Dealing with Disasters, and lots of good things to read.
Lots of different choices, all kinds of different disasters, man-made and natural.
Yep, and real and imagined as well.
Right.
So that's kind of the cool part about this, is that all are kind of exciting regardless of nonfiction or fiction. So we want to give you a little glimpse into each of the stories so you can kind of decide by interest where you want to land. These are our opinions. You may have a different opinion after you read it.
And you may want to follow along on your learning contract, because you remember that we have the whole list of selections right there on our learning contract. Some of them, remember, are marked with a black square. That means they're must reads. We're not telling you when, but at some time, 2 of those that are marked must reads, you need to read. Then the third one, you can choose from the list.
Yep, right. Sounds good. All right, let's talk about those texts. We have our first text, and we're going to kind of go in order of the actual collection for the most part. So it's called in Mammoth Waves. It's called Mammoth Shakes and Monster Waves. And in this text, you're going to learn about a tsunami that hit in 2004. As I read it, I was shocked at the effects it had on the people. I remember it on the news, but I don't really remember it being
people stories.
Yeah, the people stories. Either I didn't pay attention, or they just didn't play that as much. The personal stories really made an impact on this text. I don't know.
I noticed it's a long text. It's a pretty long informational text, but it reads quickly because of those personal stories, and lots of good information about that tsunami.
So then we move into some poems.
Yes, and they kind of come together as a set.
They do.
It's really, there are 2 poems. One is called Watcher, and one is called After the Hurricane.
Yes, I think that's After the Hurricane. The first one, After the Hurricane, was very different, I felt like, when I read it. And I've already told some of the students that the tone felt so cold and harsh in that it almost made me not like it. So it'll be interesting to see what you all think of that first one, After the Hurricane, because it definitely was written very, almost mean. I don't know, it felt very harsh.
Very
but
matter of fact.
The second one, very short and very sad, powerful in its own way, and I think it's because it's so short.
And we are going to be doing an activity with this that we're going to encourage you to do in class, where you're comparing those 2. So keep that in mind as you're reading the 2 poems. They are a must read. So remember that as you're reading those 2, you want to read both of them and think about how they are similar, how they are different. We're comparing and contrasting those.
So then we move into, after that, a story called A Night to Remember. And I say story because it's a narrative, but it's narrative nonfiction, so it's based on true events. And it is the account of the moment the Titanic hits the icebergs. So it's like we know the story of the Titanic, but it narrows it into all of these different passengers' experiences of the moment it hit the icebergs and what they thought about it. It was fascinating to read.
I love that story.
His to read Lord's story as he wove all of the passengers' accounts together into this retelling of that single moment that basically led to the rest of the story that we know. I don't think movies and things really hit on that moment as much as they hit on the aftermath and the actual sinking.
Absolutely.
So I really liked that.
It's a really good one. I highly recommend that one too.
This one we skipped over. Oh, I think I missed one. Mrs. Hooven is pointing out. There's a short story called The Banana Tree, and short story it is. So it's fictional, but definitely a challenge because of the dialect that the author uses. In other words, the characters speaking as if they would be speaking in their own
dialect in their own culture where they live.
Right. So grammar isn't the way we're used to, spelling isn't the way we're used to, so you almost have to readjust your mind to hear it. I mean, think about if you saw the Jamaican accent written out. It's that kind of a feel I got.
So you kind of have to do some translating as you're reading it. So, and remind me, Mrs. Dahl, is that a hurricane?
I think
so,
yes. It is.
So,
and it reminded me of the K.
Okay, yes.
We read later.
There's a short story,
And I didn't think I would like
imagine
that one at all, but I ended up liking the K. So if you like this one, you might consider reading the K.
The novel,
The emotions really caught me in the banana tree. They run really high between the father and the son, and I think it's something to pay attention to. So definitely. Next here is from the Titanic at 100. Mystery Solved. This is a documentary.
And it's very short short video. It's just part of the whole documentary that was done by James Cameron. He might be familiar to some of you as a famous
Big-time producer.
Yep.
Yep, definitely. I wanted to watch the rest of it. Like
yes.
it was almost disappointing because it was too short.
It is.
So.
It is, and you can tune into that. I think through PBS or different things, you could find the actual whole length of that. But we just want you, if you choose this one, you're just going to watch that short video and do some activities with that. So it might be something, especially if you like the Lord, excuse me, narrative nonfiction about the Titanic. You might like this too, because it's kind of the scientific of how the Titanic actually crashed.
Yes.
I remember them talking about the actual how it crashed and how they determined that by how it landed.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. So those are the texts that are in the collection.
And so
and
those are
our collection has a lot of tough texts to read. It's not easy work, but good work. It pays off. Then there's something called the close reader that looks like this. They are also on your digital textbook as well. But this close reader takes that element of challenge and ups it. They're even more difficult texts. So those of you that really scored well on your pretest, I highly recommend you maybe spend some time in the close reader stories.
Right.
So there are 3. The first one was a book review about something called Moby Duck, and it was not only complicated in the way it was written, like I had to reread a couple times in places because of the style that the author chose. I felt it was really biased to the point of me being annoyed. So it would be really interesting to know what you all thought as you read it, to see if you get the author's style as being biased and way one-sided.
So I don't think you're highly recommending that one.
I'm not really. It felt full of propaganda, and anyway, I'm curious to see what other people think. But the short story by Ray Bradbury was fascinating.
That's a good one. And Ray Bradbury is a very famous author.
Yes.
He has written a lot of science fiction, correct me if I'm wrong,
yes.
A lot of science fiction. And you will read Ray Bradbury in the future. So if you want to taste kind of a foreshadowing of what's to come in your literary life, you might want to choose Ray Bradbury's short stories.
Yeah. So. Bradbury has written lots of books and short stories, and so this is one of them, There Will Come Soft Rains. Interesting, as it uses stark opposites to portray kind of the overall disaster that has happened, and obviously science fiction, it's set very much in the future, and the story was disturbing because of those opposites. I think there were lots of onomatopoeia actually used and sentence length to kind of get that disturbance in there. It's the sounds that it relies on heavily. Very automated society. Anyway, it'll be interesting for you guys to read. I really recommend it.
And maybe it would
lot.
be a good one to read if you are especially thinking about, as we look forward to writing your own choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
If you want yours set in the future, more of a science fiction choose your own adventure, that might be a great one to kind of start your research.
That's a really good idea. So the final one is this article.
Our last one in the close reader is titled On the Titanic, Defined by What They Wore. And this is another picture of the Titanic, but it talks about how people were definitely labeled by class. We know that the lower class, the lowest class, had to live or travel, that's the better word, in the lowest area of the ship. And therefore, when it was time to escape the ship and get on lifeboats, they were locked away, and many of them did not survive as a result of that. As they were determining which people got onto the lifeboats, the first class passengers got to get on first, the second class passengers sometimes didn't even get on.
And the way they were making that decision was based very much, at least according to this article, on what they were wearing.
Right. So
you clearly are first class. Get on the lifeboat. You are not. You're staying here.
And I love what they say in this article too about the relics that were found, well preserved from the bottom of the ocean floor. Even they talk about an alligator handbag that was very obviously expensive, preserved from the bottom of the ocean floor. And when they made the movie Titanic, the costume designer used a lot of those pictures to kind of start.
They talk to her in this
Yes,
one.
yes,
So
they do. They interview her.
It's an interesting story, interesting article, I should say.
And it includes a diagram of the Titanic, and it shows all the different levels of
and where
people
everybody
lived.
was.
Mm-hmm.
So
people traveled. Yeah.
We're hoping that you find lots to read. I would encourage you to read more than just the 3 we're asking you for, but we know that some of you read at different rates, and 3 is asking a lot, whereas some of you could read 7 or 8 of these texts, get them all in, and really learn. So let us know what you think.